Now, U.S. officials say, quote, substantial progress has been made in trade talks with China. Speaking in Geneva on the second day of negotiations, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent offered scant information on the talks, but he said more details would be released later on Monday. The U.S. announced massive tariffs on goods from China in April. And for more on the U.S.-China tariff talks, let's talk to Sandra Navidi, CEO of the consulting firm BeyondGlobal. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. There are no immediate details about what the agreement contains, but there's a suggestion that it will reduce Beijing's trade deficit with the U.S. How could this play out in practical terms?
Well, it remains to be seen what the result of the talks are going to be. They're supposed to be announced tomorrow. But Donald Trump has a consistent track record of over-promising and under-delivering. He has completely backed himself into a corner. So I think the maximum that we should expect at this time is probably that talks have resumed, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, and that escalation, the risk of further escalation has been reduced.
So a bit too early to say that the US-China trade war may be over, but perhaps the massive uncertainty that we've seen in global markets, will that disappear?
Well, the problem is that Donald Trump and his administration have proven themselves to be completely unreliable. Their arguments and explanations are entirely nonsensical. So Wall Street and CEOs of big companies have nothing to go by, and there's no reliability. And I think the damage that has been done has already been grave and is probably will have a lasting impact, even if an agreement will be reached between China and the US.
Can you remind us a bit of the sort of impact that this has had already?
Well, especially smaller companies. Let's say they bought inventory, ordered inventory from China for $100,000. And now all of a sudden, in addition to this $100,000, they have to pay another $145,000. Smaller companies don't have the liquidities. They won't get a bank loan for that because no customer in the world is able to pay for that. And then even bigger companies, they may be able to hold out longer, but even they are going to run into problems, as many CEOs of big companies have told Donald Trump. And so we are currently only a few weeks away from empty shelves. I can tell you, I live in New York, and I myself and my friends, we have already stocked up stuff because we're afraid simply of running out of things, not only because wares are going to become more expensive, but probably some things we can't get any longer because it's not worthwhile economically for importers to bring them to the United States.
Not a very optimistic message there. I wonder, do you see a way forward that could get the situation to a better point?
Well, Donald Trump is unreliable. I think his advisors are trying behind the scenes to kind of get him to agree to lower tariffs, because what is an agreement? Even if Donald Trump were to lower tariffs for China to 80%, that is also not economically viable. If it were at 50%, maybe some companies could handle that. But tariffs would have to decrease substantially in order for a deal to work. And we are very far from an agreement.
That's Sandra Navidi. Thank you so much for those insights.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.